Hello everyone, my name's Gomer3261 and I'm creating this video to explain my new mod IneveraCraft. Now, IneveraCraft is in very early stages, so it only has one core mechanic, but that mechanic is fairly complex and there's nothing in the mod to explain how it works right now. So this video is to act as sort of a reference to everything that IneveraCraft can do. Now, IneveraCraft is based on a book series called The Demon Cycle, written by Peter V. Brett, in that it uses similar mechanics for the magic within the mod. Now, in Peter Brett's book, the basis or the idea is that magical creatures, which are demons, are able to rise up from the ground at nighttime and wreak havoc on the world around them. As well, magic itself is able to rise up from the ground, but only during the night. Now, Inevra makes use of the idea that this magic can be harnessed by creating certain shapes in the book they use paint, but in Minecraft right now I'm using blocks. So you create a large sort of shape in the ground that's in a specific formation, and it will be able to use this kind of passive magic to have an effect on the world around it. Now, I've created a little level here in which I'm going to use to demo all of the mechanics that currently exist in the mod to you. So, first thing I want to look at is the world gen. So currently, the only thing that gets generated by IneveraCraft are demon fossils, and they look like this. You can see them all over the walls here. Now, obviously, they're not going to spawn like this. This isn't the regular spawn rate. I've placed these here just so you can see what they look like. Demon fossils, when broken, will drop both demon flesh and demon bone, which are necessary to craft most of the items in IneveraCraft. Now, demons have some special properties which carry over to their dead bodies. One is that they burn up in the sun. So if a demon is revealed to sunlight, it will actually burn up and die, similar to some of the mobs in Minecraft. That carries over to these blocks. So if a block is directly revealed to sunlight, which means it has a path straight up to the sun, you can see it will light on fire, and eventually it will break. And all of the demon bones and flesh that were in it are burned off, and you get nothing but a single piece of cobblestone. So you have to be careful when you're digging for this material, that you never reveal it directly to sunlight. Now, these are the items that are typically dropped by a block, or by a demon fossil. The amount of demon flesh is random. It can be anywhere from 1 to 4. I just chose 4 because I want to show you another mechanic. Demon items, so items that are created from demon flesh or bone, that aren't where they're not encased, so they're visible to the sun, will actually be destroyed by sunlight, just like the block. So you can see as I throw them out here, they'll light on fire and eventually disappear. Now, that means you have to be careful with these items. They have to be kept in your inventory at all, or whenever it's sunny out. So that's something else that you have to watch out for when working with the items in this mod. Now, this is a great word. This is that shape I was telling you about earlier that will have an effect on the world. This is just one example. There are a very large variety of them in the mod, and there will be more in later versions. This one is made out of blocks that are created from carved quartz, or chiseled quartz, I believe it's called. And there's actually another block in here, it's under that area over there, that's the core of the ward that kind of controls the overall structure. These are multi-block structures, but they're not like ones that exist in other mods, in that they require a specific shape and not so much specific blocks. Now, these green wool blocks here are just to outline kind of the border of the Great Ward. So the Great Ward has a diameter of 9 blocks that it affects, and it affects anything outwards of 4 blocks from its surface. So that's kind of the area that a Great Ward can affect. Now, we're going to look at creating the actual blocks that are required to make these. So the first is a Great Ward core. There's currently only one in the mod, but I do have plans for more, and it's a minor Great Ward core, so it creates the weakest and smallest possible Great Ward. Now, it is made by surrounding a demon bone in 8 pieces of wood. This recipe will actually use the item dictionary, or the ore dictionary, so any wood planks will work for it. And the next one is Great Ward blocks. Now, Great Ward blocks come in many different versions. So you can see over there, those ones are made from chiseled quartz, but this recipe uses bricks. That's because both chiseled quartz and bricks are valid materials to use to create these. Now, they're created by a single piece of demon flesh in the center, surrounded by any valid type of block for creating these. Now, I'm just going to show you that these actually work by grabbing all of the items that I've placed in this chest previously. We'll start by creating the core. So the core is just simply wood, and I'm using multiple types here to show that the the ore dictionary actually works. So this gives me a minor great word core, and then a piece of demon flesh surrounded by 8 bricks. Actually gives me 8 great word brick blocks. So these blocks are used to create the face of the great word, which you can see here. And brick is just one of the types, as is chiseled quartz. Now, what I'd like to show you, that's basically the recipes. What I'd like to show you is the different types of great word blocks that can be created. I have them all lined up here. Now, they come in different tiers, and each tier has a stronger effect on the great word. So the more expensive the block that you create the great word is, the stronger that great word will be itself. Now, the first tier is wood. So as you can see, it's the 4 types of vanilla wood. No other wood planks will work, unfortunately. It's only these 4. But when you create a great word block out of them, they will keep their color. So you can create jungle great word blocks. You can create spruce great word blocks. Unlike the great word core, they will keep their color. The second tier is a 2 times multiplier, which is twice as powerful as these wooden blocks, and it's made out of stone. So stone includes chiseled stone, mossy stone, stone bricks, mossy stone bricks, and regular bricks. Any one of these 4 can be used, just like I showed you earlier with the bricks, to create great word blocks that are twice as powerful as wooden ones. The next tier after that, tier 2.5, is sandstone. Now, sandstone is actually the same power as stone, it's just a separate block. That's why I called it tier 2.5, instead of having tier 2 include 7 different blocks. Sandstone can use smooth, chiseled, or regular sandstone, and it'll keep the texture on the side. So you can create a great word that kind of matches what you've made your house out of. The next tier, tier 3, uses nether materials, and it's a 4 times multiplier, so twice as powerful as the stone tier. Now the nether tier allows you to use nether brick, quartz blocks, chiseled quartz blocks, and quartz pillars. The tier after that, tier 4, is metal. So this allows you to create a metal great word block that has a 5 times multiplier. So only an additional wood on top of this in power, or on top of this nether stuff on power. Now, this is actually not created by using blocks. It's created by using ingots. So the recipe changes. Instead of using iron blocks back there, it uses iron ingots. And I hope to include other metals from different mods as well, things like copper and tin and that sort of thing. The tier after that, this should say tier 5, I'm sorry, is precious metals. And they have a 6 times multiplier as opposed to a 5 times multiplier. And that currently only includes gold, but I'd like to include silver from other mods as well. And that again uses just ingots for the recipe. And the final tier, tier 6, uses gems, and it's an 8 times multiplier. So we jump right over 7. There is no tier with 7 times multiplier. But gems create the most powerful great wards. And you can use either emeralds, and you use emeralds, not emerald blocks, in the crafting recipe, or diamonds to create these blocks. Now over here I just have some example recipes. So this one would be chiseled sandstone. That will give you chiseled sandstone great ward blocks. And this is gold, and you can see it uses ingots, and that'll create gold great ward blocks. Now, I've shown you how to create kind of the pieces of the great ward. I'm going to show you how to create an actual great ward itself. Now, there are a large number of varieties of great wards because it's split into different areas, and each area that you create a certain shape in the great ward will change the effect of the great ward. So even if you keep this blue and green area the same and you just change this red one, the great ward will work differently. So I'll tell you exactly what each area affects. So first we'll start off, this black area is actually not part of the great ward. I've included it so that the great ward shape looks like a 9x9 square, which is a lot easier to remember and a lot easier to visualize. But you don't actually, there's no requirements on these blocks to create the great ward. They can literally be anything. The next one is this red area, which includes the orange blocks, or block there, and that controls what type of target the great ward can affect. So you can use this to limit the great ward to only affect players or farm animals or item entities, which are when you drop an item on the ground like this. So great wards can target specifically these and nothing else by changing simply the shape in that little red area, including the orange block. Now the reason the orange block exists is to illustrate where the great ward core goes. So that is the core location for the great ward. Now, the blue area is the effect, and the effect dictates whether the great ward will have a positive or negative effect on its target. And it also includes the ability to have a random effect each time the great ward ticks over and actually causes something to occur within the world. So there's only 3 possibilities, positive, negative, or random, but it actually allows a great number of different great ward types to exist. Sorry, let me just clear and time 0. Nobody wants to listen to rain in a video. Now the green area, this final area here, is the major part of the great ward and really decides what the great ward does. This is the attribute that great wards affect. So this will affect, or this chooses whether the great ward will say affect target's health, target's hunger, target's velocity, that sort of thing. And based on the shape put in here, the great ward will act completely different than any other great ward. So behind me, I have an example great ward, and this one's designed to illustrate activating and deactivating great wards, as well as the possible world shape around the great ward. So as you can see, this great ward, certain areas that it affects actually have blocks in it, and it doesn't mind. It's still operating. You can tell because it's purple, and there are effects around me. You can see it's emanating different symbols and things into the air. This means that the great ward doesn't actually have to be on a flat surface. You can see there's divots and there's things coming out of it, and there's a roof over top of it, even though the effect will go up to 2 blocks higher than this. This is just to show that great wards are not picky. However, they do have one limitation, and that is that the great ward shape itself has to be visible at least 1 block up, which means if the great ward, say, is facing out of the ground like this one is, and you place a solid block on top of it, it will break because the shape no longer exists as it's supposed to. It's an invalid shape, and this will disable the great ward. However, glass is valid. So if you put glass over top of the blocks as such, the great ward will still be able to work, and you can reactivate the great ward by right-clicking on the great ward core. That's always how you activate great wards. Simply right-clicking it, and it'll search for any great ward around it and activate that great ward. You can only have 1 great ward per core, by the way. Now, as you can see, I can do whatever I want with this glass, and it's fine. So air or glass are both valid blocks to be on, or blocking, or to be in front of the face of a great ward. However, anything solid will deactivate it. Now, as I'll just show you as an example, this great ward is placed in the wall, so it comes outwards from the wall. So if I place a block not on top of the great ward blocks, but in front of, you can see this one will deactivate as well. As well. Now, this great ward you can see faces out from the ground. So that's an interesting feature of great wards. They can actually face in any direction that you want, as long as they follow this pattern where the target is in one corner, and the rest of the great ward, when you look at the shape, you look with just look at it with the target in the top left and sort of treat it like you're reading a book. So you read from left to right and top to bottom, and you just create the shape in the same way, and the great ward should be able to work. So that allows you to place great wards on the ground like this, in the walls, and even on the roof facing downwards, and they'll all work and activate, and they should all perform identically other than the direction that they're facing. So now you've seen how to activate a great ward. You can deactivate it by breaking one of the blocks or placing a block on top of it or whatever you want to do. I'm going to show you the different components or the different possible shapes in each component of the great ward. So first, we're going to start with targets, which is this red area. Now there's 5 valid targets. The first one is this simple shape. So this gold block would go in the center where the orange is, and the gold block below it would obviously go below that. So you just copy this from the screen directly in front of us into the pattern shape that I've shown you earlier. Now this first one allows the great word to target anything it can possibly have an effect on. So it's a target all. And I'll just look at that for a second in case people are using this as reference. The second one here targets items only. So this one will limit the great word to only being able to affect item entities, which are items that you've dropped on the ground near it. This is useful for, say, creating a great ward that pulls items towards the middle of it and drops them through a hole in the center, as you can easily form that great ward. I'll show you that later. The next target type looks like this. It's animals only. And again, this maps directly to the shape that I've shown you previously. This will limit the great ward to only targeting neutral mobs, so sheep and pigs and chicken and that sort of thing. This will also work with mobs added by other mods, theoretically, as long as they're based on the same base class as animals. The next one targets only mobs. Now, mobs doesn't include neutral mobs. It actually includes only target or hostile mobs. So this will target things like zombies and skeletons and that sort of thing. So this can be used to create a great word that, say, only drains health from hostile enemies. And then the final one, this target type, will only target players. So this one can be used to limit the great ward to, say, only give food to players who are standing within its area. So only increase the, fullness of players, that sort of thing. So those are the 5 target types that you can use in great words. And any one of those target types can be used with any possible other attribute and effect, which is the green and blue areas, in any combination. So you can see that by combining different versions of each of these, there are a large number of different effects that great words can have on the world, and that's only going to get bigger as I add more to the mod. So next, we're going to look at attributes, which are sort of the keys to great word. They're the main part of the great word. Everything else sort of just modifies the way they work. So there's currently 5 attributes, and there will be many more in later versions. These are just the ones that I've implemented for this initial release. And they are, beginning with health. So this is health. You can see it only goes in the green area. And if you copy this exact shape and put a valid target and a valid effect in it, you'll be able to create a great ward. Now this shape will allow you to either increase or decrease the health of whatever mobs you decide to target. So you can use, say, combine it with a player target type and a positive effect type. You'll create a ward that heals only players. The next one is hunger. So this shape here, and you can see it cuts off along this line here. Just use the black triangles to kind of figure out which great word's which. This shape allows you to affect the hunger of players and animals. It currently does not affect hostile mobs or items, but I may add some sort of feature for that in the future, say making zombies move faster or go rabid because they're more hungry, they want to get at you, that type of thing. Or say feeding tameable animals, so your horse or a wolf, it'll be the equivalent of the player who owns a great word, say giving them a bone or giving them whatever it is they eat. It, in animals currently, causes them to fall in love. So if you feed a sheep or you feed a pig, it will fall in love and attempt to find a partner and create a new baby animal. With players, it'll actually replenish your health bar, or if you set it to negative, it'll drain a player's health bar. And I'll just look at this for another second for references for people. The next type we'll go over here is velocity. So this allows you to affect the velocity of whatever is on the great ward. Now, it doesn't have an effect on items because it uses potion effects. So it actually gives you a speed boost potion effect or a speed drain potion effect, depending on which type of effect you give the great ward, positive or negative. So this can be used, say, if you make a bunch of them in a row, to create a road that causes you to move much, much faster from place to place. And the effect actually lasts for, I believe, a second or two. So you can use it to run a fair distance, I think about double the great ward if the timing's right. so you can space them out a little bit when creating roads and things with them. And it also, I think, allows you to jump a little higher. So I'll just look at this for reference for a second. Okay, so the next attribute we're going to look at is expansion. Now expansion's a little more interesting. Expansion periodically pushes whatever its target is away from the center of the Great Ward. Now if you use a negative effect, it'll pull the target towards the center of the Great Ward. Now expansion does not work quickly, but it will never stop working. It just constantly moves everything, or moves things within it. So this can be used to control sort of item drops. So say you create a mob grinder, this can pull all of the items dropped in the area towards the center, which you can actually break out so that they fall through the center using gravity. It allows you to kind of collect items up. Or say if you're dumping a bunch of items using water to move them, this will allow you to move them towards one place without having to build, you know, a water source 8 blocks away so that it doesn't pour through the middle. So expansion is more useful for items than anything else. You can also use it in combination with tethered animals to sort of push any animals that are born on top of it off the edges, but you can tether an animal to the center, and the tethered animal will never be pushed off because they'll constantly be pulled towards the middle as well. Those are kind of the two interesting uses I've found for this. So I'll keep looking at it here for a second for reference. It's the expansion Great Ward attribute. And finally, my favorite attribute, which is kind of the most complex, is passability. Now passability allows you to create sort of a force field in a circular area that will either prevent creatures from escaping the Great Ward once they've entered, or prevent them from entering the Great Ward unless they were in there when the Great Ward was activated. This can be combined with different target types to, say, create a safe zone that mobs can't get into, or to create a fence, an invisible fence that animals can enter but can't escape, or you can combine it with the random effect, which has a special effect in this. Instead of rather randomly choosing to throw them towards the center or throw them out when they pass over the edge of the Great Ward, any entity that's in it when it's activated will not be able to escape, and any entity that tries to enter it after it's activated will be pushed back out. So it creates sort of a wall. Nothing can get out, nothing can get in. Whereas the two other attributes create one-way walls. And this allows you to, say, create a pen for sheep that no other creature can get into, or no other mob can get into, but players can. That sort of thing. So it is quite useful in farming and protection from mobs. I'll just look at it here for a second for reference. And you can see all of these sort of shapes that I've created to show you just the attributes fit within the same general shape of a Great Ward that I've illustrated over there. So all you have to do is create them in this shape, create your target in the same one, and finally create your effect and activate it. And as long as you follow this same shape, again reading left to right and top to bottom, it should work. You cannot, however, you can rotate it, but you cannot flip it. So you cannot have your target over in that corner and flip the ward. It has to be rotated, if that makes sense. All right, so that is attributes. And finally, we're going to look at effects. Now, Great Ward effects, there's only 3 of them. So we'll start with positive. And positive only requires 4 blocks. And they're in the bottom right corner here. And it just looks like this. I'll look at it for a second. This will use the default effect of the Great Ward. Now, the next one is negative, and this is the shape negative is. You can see it's only the top left corner. And this will invert the effect of the Great Ward attribute, so instead of gaining health, say you'll lose health. And finally, this is random or chaotic, and this will choose each time the ward affects something whether or not it should be a positive effect or a negative effect. So with most Great Wards that currently exist, this is just kind of random, weird, almost like a troll effect to put on something. But with the passability Great Ward, it does something special. Let me just clear the weather here. And in future wards that I create in the mod, you'll see this random or chaotic effect hopefully come to more use than just being kind of silly. Anyways, these are the 3 effects that you can use on Great Wards. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at some just example great words that I've created. I'm not going to explain how they work at all. I just show you kind of the number of different versions that can be created. And then I'm going to create one on film so that you can see exactly how it works. So, these are all valid working great words, and they're all just combinations of the 5 target types, the 5 attribute types, and the 3 effect types that currently exist in the mod. You can see they go out quite a fair distance. Now the wards are backed on gravel and snow here just so that they stand out. You can use any sort of block, even air, in that area, and the great ward will continue to work. So you can see just a huge variety. Just at quick glance, I can recognize that one's a passability. I can't even tell what this one is. I think it's hunger. That one's health. And you can see there's just a massive variety of them out here. And this isn't even half of the different types of great wards that can currently be created. And with each version of the mod, there will be even more of these. And the number will just keep expanding very rapidly. Now, what we're going to do to finish off this video is I'm going to create a great ward with you, and I'm going to explain what I'm doing as I do it, so that hopefully you'll be able to understand exactly how this works. Now, we don't need these blocks. What you need is one core and a number of great ward blocks. So the core, like I explained before, you can see this is the same shape that you're used to seeing, the same colors and everything. That's the target, that's the attribute, that's the effect. So the first thing we need to do is the core needs to be planted down in the middle. You can see I used yellow wool to illustrate where. And you also need to be able to click the core. So I'm just going to dig a temporary hole here. Now what I want to create is a great ward that targets players. I'm going to use diamond so that it has the strongest possible effect. It's going to target players. It's going to increase their velocity. So it's going to give a velocity buff. And I want it to be positive. So I'll start out by putting in the player target shape, which looks like this. So this is how a player is targeted. And you can see I've just taken the exact shape that I showed you earlier, and I've put it in that red square in this sort of outline. Now the next thing I need to do is I need to create the velocity attribute. And the order doesn't really matter here because the great word is only checked when you right-click the core. So I could create the effect first and then the target and then the attribute or whatever I want to do, as long as the final shape is completed before I right-click down here, because you can see right now it doesn't work. But I choose to do the attribute next. So I'm going to use the velocity attribute, and it takes a little bit to copy out. And you may want to have a reference on you because it takes a while to memorize these as well. In fact, I only know a few of them off memory perfectly. So I'm just placing the blocks in the same shape that I had earlier in the video. You can see that's the velocity attribute in place. So now I'm targeting players and I'm affecting their velocity. But I need to tell it whether it's a positive, negative, or random effect. And what I want is a positive effect. So I'm going to dig out the positive shape from this blue area and I'm going to place blocks in it. Now this is my complete great ward. This is what it'll look like. Any other block here that isn't a diamond great ward block can be anything I want, as long as the block on top of these diamond blocks is either glass or air. So what I'll do now is I'll right-click the great ward core, and the great ward core will check to see if there's a valid great ward. And you can see this periodically gives me a really massive movement speed bonus because I'm using diamond blocks. Any other type of block and the movement speed would be very reduced. You can see the speed only lasts 1 or 2 seconds here, but it's refreshed. So as long as I'm on the ward, I keep having this effect applied to me. And you can have multiple entities on this world or on this ward. This one only targets players. But you could have multiple players on this ward and they'd all get the bonus from it. And the more or the higher tier blocks you use to create the ward, such as these diamond blocks, the more people it will be able to affect at once, as well as how strong it is. Now you can see I'm standing on the black area and I'm not being affected because the great ward works in a radius. So as soon as I enter that radius, you'll see I get a speed bonus. And I can use that speed bonus for up to a second afterwards, but it will cut out. And that is how you create a great ward. And this video now covers all of the major mechanics that currently exist inside the mod. There are many, many more mechanics planned, and Great Words aren't the only thing that this mod will focus on. I want to include many other things, including spell creation and casting and that sort of thing, all based on the same similar demon magic that only rises up at night. But for now, this is what exists within the mod. This is what it can do. I've shown you all of the different parts of Great Words. You can interchange those all you want, create different interesting things. I hope the mod is enjoyable for you guys. I hope you find it interesting. And thanks for watching.